Hey everybody out in trombone land. I saw something posted tonight about somebody asking a question regarding tone quality in softer dynamic levels. Um, and this is something that I work with my own students on a lot and thought I might have a few thoughts. So, in case anybody finds it useful or interesting, here's what I have to say about it. Um, I find that a lot of brass players tend to set their embouchures up with the lips a little too far apart. And if you think about the way that we make sound on a brass instrument, like if these are your lips, they have to wiggle back and forth and hit each other in order to make a vibration happen, in order to make sound come out. So when you play really loud, your lips are moving a lot. They move a lot, and it's okay if they're pretty far apart because they'll move so much that they'll still hit in the middle. But if your chops are set this far apart and you play soft, they're going to go like this and they're not going to hit in the middle. And so at the very best, they might move just a little and hit a little in the middle, and so you'll get a very diffuse or airy sound. But at the worst, you're going to get no sound at all because the lips are not touching and they're not moving. But if you play loud, they move enough that they actually touch in the middle and create a sound. So that's why a lot of brass players, I think, have a much easier time playing loud than soft. And so what can you do to help yourself fix that? I certainly don't want to give the impression that I think that everyone's embouchure should be really tight and like clamped down or anything. If I play with a super tight embouchure, it would sound like this. And that's me just like keeping my lips as close together as possible and trying not to let them move. So it's not about making them tight. It's just about setting them nice and close together so that they'll touch and they'll vibrate against one another no matter what volume that you're playing at. So how can we work on this? How can we get our embouchure to make those kinds of adjustments? One of the ways that I work on myself a lot, and that what I tell my students a lot, is to do air attacks. And some of you probably have heard people practicing air attacks, and it might sound something like this. And do you hear how you hear the air start first, and then all of a sudden the tone comes in just a second later. And that is actually caused by the fact that my lips are too far apart to start. My lips are so far apart that they're not actually making any sound when I put air through them. And then all of a sudden when I realize, oh shoot, there's no sound coming out, I make the lips come a little closer together, and that's when the sound happens. So if you listen again, listen for that happening. That's not the way that I like to practice air attacks, because I think that trains us to do the wrong formation of the embouchure to start a note with. So instead, the way I like to practice air attacks is to actually make the lips have a pa or a ba sound at the beginning of the air attack, so that they're actually touching from the very start of the note. And if you do that, it sounds like this. And you hopefully can hear on the bad recording quality of my iPad that there's a little ba. You actually hear the at the beginning of the note when I do an air attack. That was no tongue. That was just completely attacked with the air and letting the lips start from a touching position. And as soon as the air is introduced, they go ba, 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 and they get spread apart just a little to let the air through. So if you practice these air attacks, the way I like to practice them actually is like if I'm doing a lip slur, I'll just start my lip slur with an air attack like this. Or, whatever lip slur that I'm going to do, I start ba, And that way I'm practicing my lip slur, yeah, but I'm also not making myself have to start with the tongue. That's another thing, is that when your chops are set pretty wide apart to start the note, um, a lot of people become overly reliant on the tongue to get the note to start. And you probably hear people that, do stuff like this. And they need the tongue to sort of kick start, because the chops are so far apart, they're so spread apart, that they need the tongue to blast the air just a little bit at the beginning in order to get those chops that are set this far apart to actually go enough that they start, hitting each other and making the sound. If you practice these air attacks and get used to having your embouchure set not tightly, not like clamped down and being, tight, but if you set the embouchure where the lips are just nice and close to one another, you don't have to use a ton of tongue to start a note with. In fact, you don't have to use any tongue at all to start a note, like I just demonstrated with the air attacks. But you certainly don't need to use a lot of tongue for almost anything. For anything, I mean, especially not loud playing. If I were going to play like Ride of the Valkyries or something, I hardly use any tongue to start that. I just da da. I just use a nice sort of legato, maybe da sound to go. And that's not, I'm not ta-ta, I'm not attacking the crap out of it or anything. I'm just using a little bit of tongue and letting the fact that my lips are close enough together do the rest of the work. So as you do this in softer and softer dynamic levels, you'll find that it's actually not that scary or not that hard to come in on a soft entrance. The only reason it's scary is because people's chops are generally set too far apart, and they know from past experience that it's hard to attack a soft note, even though the only reason it's hard is because their chops are set a little bit too far apart. So like I just showed you with the Bordoni I played at the beginning, I don't have any anxiety about coming in on that soft piano middle G, because I know that my chops are close enough that they're touching, that as soon as I put some air through them, they'll start vibrating. The other really nice side effect of this, positive side effect I should say, is that it really, really cuts down on response issues that we have oftentimes, that we hear brass players make at the beginning of the note. I mean, gosh, if I had $1 for every time I heard, the trombone player pick up their horn and go, and the beginning of the note doesn't speak, and then they start freaking out and they can't figure out how to make it start. I mean, I'm not saying that never ever happens to me, but at least when it does happen, I know immediately how to fix it. And for the most part, I'd say 99% of the time, there's no problem starting a note for me. I start with, the lips nice and touching, and as a result, any little amount of air, it doesn't matter, whatever range I start in, it doesn't matter, high notes, low notes, anything in between. My lips are just touching, and as soon as the air gets blown through the middle of them, it makes the sound start. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to comment or let me know if I can follow up on this in any way. But the most important points of this are practice air attacks. If you practice air attacks, not like the false start type of air attack, but the ba, ba, where your lips start from a touching position and the air subtly blows them apart as you start to play, you will start to be able to play softer with a better tone, and your response issues will start going away the better that you get at it. So I hope that this has been interesting or useful for people to listen to and find out a little bit about what I do to work on my tone quality in the softer registers and getting more consistent attacks throughout playing soft, loud, and anywhere in between. If you have questions, please follow up, but in the meantime, thanks for watching. Hope it was useful.